Hi, this is a recording of one of the outputs of our recent open curriculum project that has been presented in one of the international conferences in Bucharest in Romania in 2018. Well, the name of the paper is Using Scenario Development and Personal Learning Environment and Network to Support Curriculum Design. It is really one of the major projects inside a major initiative that we're working on in order to promote the co-creation of content and curriculum, subject syllabus and so forth, with students and graduates in rapidly advancing business and technology areas. You may imagine that in such topics and areas, the advancement of the field is very, very rapid, and we believe students should also have a role in shaping what they should be learning in the future. And because of that, we revise the way that learning is being done in the classroom and also during the semester, as well as brought in other parties like graduates into the learning process. So in a nutshell, the way that the pedagogy is being defined is something like this. We go from step 1 to step 5. First one, as usual, the instructor or the professor would be delivering a class for most of the time during the semester, and he continues to do that. However, during some of the class times, in fact, it's being spent on educating the students how to think, to learn, and to learn. So in other words, one of the methods that we introduce is scenario development, scenario planning. And students equipped with these techniques will be able to generate for a given topic what sort of potential future situations may eventuate. Of course, they may or may not eventuate, but it doesn't really matter. The learning in generating these scenarios is extremely valuable. So when we come to stage 3, it is really in the thick of generating the scenarios. Students would have to work together, do background research, discussions, brainstorming, gather statistics, make informed opinion, lots and lots of discussions, and then in order to generate the potential scenarios. They then, in step 4, present those scenarios to the teacher and to other students. They may also be recording videos of summary of those scenarios to other people, including the public as well. Now, step 1, 2, 3, 4 definitely involve the teacher. And step 5 is basically the teacher or teachers plus selected parties only, because step 5 is to review what the students have generated, in particular during the period between the last delivery and the next delivery of that subject. The teacher basically reviews what are some of the scenarios being generated, assess the current situation, and if he or she deemed that the reality of some of the scenarios are actually taking shape, then the syllabus may be modified with the same learning outcomes, of course, to reflect the advancement of the field. So we believe this is a very exciting approach, and living to the effect that we co-design the syllabus with graduates and students together. So the benefits of this new learning pedagogy, needless to say, is it helps to reinforce students' ability learn to learn, rather than expecting the students to download other reports and read them. They do that as well, but at the same time, they know at least some basic techniques on how to generate, I suppose, a glimpse of the future with reasons and substantiation. It enhances students' self-confidence in trying to assess the current situation and generate, as I said, a piece of the future. It also raises students' awareness of global trends and also driving forces, because in the process of carrying out this research, they are more exposed to the prevailing trends and driving forces around us. Students learn and practice research skills, definitely, because that's everything that they will have to learn and apply in the generation of the scenarios. In fact, involve of graduates and other parties actually bring forward students' exposure to the real world, because they will working, brainstorming together with graduates in order to generate their future scenarios. So this way, they have an earlier exposure in appreciating what are some of the constraints and various things that are happening in the real world that could be quite different from what they have read in the textbook. And above all, this is also a systematic process for ensuring that the course syllabus is up to date and relevant. It's similar to the OBE, outcome-based education approach on governing the learning outcomes for students. But this is at the subject and syllabus level. So once again, in recapping the 5 steps that are involved for students to generate the scenarios. First one is they are given a topic to work with, or they are given an objective to start researching and generate the scenarios. Second one is they have to apply, and generate the identified trends and driving forces behind this particular objective, whatever that is. And thirdly, they have to identify the uncertainty that may influence, the realization of the focused trends. Fourthly, they would have to actually flesh out the scenarios in narratives, identify the what's, who, when, and other things that shape, the scenarios. And finally, they would have to actually create the scenario narrative itself that basically is paragraphs and paragraph information describing the scenarios. Well, for example, if we look at this page in the area of business process management, one of the subjects that I teach, I actually use these 4 questions to prime the students to generate scenarios. They only have to pick one. For example, the first one is, how will BPM evolve in the next 5 years? Number 2, how will BPMS, Business Process Management System, evolve in the next 5 years? Number 3, how will business process management and robotic process automation develop in the next 3 years? And number 4, how will smart manufacturing affect business process management or process management in the next 10 years? So we also help the students by providing them and pointing to them a set of, we believe, relevant resources to get them started. And such resources may include the study material, selected readings that are designated and provided for the subject, of course. They may also include selective massive open online courses or internal special small private online courses, YouTube videos, and other means which are singled out that we believe is relevant for the students to consider. We may also give them the documents and reports that contain global trends and driving forces. Last but not least, most of the students in our classes also operate a personal learning environment, something that PolyU, at least for my subjects, have been operating for the last 6 years. Basically, it's an RSS tool which actually extracts and automatically deliver relevant material to each and every student who set it up, plus a Google Plus community discussion area where they can actually annotate and co-learn together with all these articles and questions that they have posed to each other to share, to learn, and to discuss. So all in all, there's it's a rich repository of information provided to students for them to consider, identify what we believe to be the driving forces and trends, global phenomenon, mega trends, mega phenomena that are affecting our life, not just on that particular question that they have chosen. They are also to remind about, for example, social, technical, legal, environmental, and other major areas in order to think about these trends and driving forces. Once these trends and driving forces are being identified, they put them down as a term in yellow sticky notes, and they have lots and lots of them because we encourage them to generate as many as possible. Then another thing they need to do is to start consolidating these groups of yellow sticky notes by generalizing and grouping together a set of notes that they believe to be addressing the same area. So they cluster them, and together they apply a technique. They learn and apply a technique called sensemaking in making this happen. So what appears to be dozens and dozens of yellow sticky notes among a group of students, eventually, in about half an hour's time, get reduced to 3 or 4 clusters. Then the third step is to identify, what are the focus area, or what is the focus area that scenarios should be generated. We educate students about this matrix. The matrix on the x-axis we have, the degree of uncertainty, whereas on the y-axis we plot the impact of a trend becoming true. So we discuss with students about these 4 quadrants, where uncertainty is low and high, and also where impact is low and high. And obviously, we can ask students to generate scenarios for all 4 quadrants, but for the sake of limiting the scale of the assignment and the exercise, we believe the most exciting area to ask students to brainstorm and generate scenarios will be the top right, which is where the impact is high and the uncertainty is also high. So that will be extremely exciting and beneficial to generate scenarios to get a glimpse of the future. So we ask students to to put all their clustered notes, clusters areas from the previous step after sense making into these 4 quadrants and focus on generating scenarios that fall into the top right quadrant. Then continuing on, the second last step that the students have to do is to identify uncertainty. In fact, they are asked to generate 2 axes of uncertainty that would determine the realization of the scenarios in the chosen quadrant from the previous step. So these axes necessarily need to be independent, orthogonal, in other words, so that they are completely unrelated to each other. And each axis, you can imagine, they have 2 extremities, 2 ends, and therefore for 2 axes there are 4 extremities. Once again, we use these 4 extremities to identify the 4 different potential scenarios that can be generated. So that's a combination of the pairs of uncertainty from each of the 2 axes. Finally, in the 5th step, students are asked to flesh out the scenarios by identifying, for example, who will be impacted, when the scenario will become true, and what form it will shape, and what technology will be it will be dependent on, and so forth. So with a set of templates, students are guided to generate narratives for each and every one of the scenarios. These scenarios are being captured into a Google form, which together for a class of 50 or 60 students, we can easily generate a PDF book, which amounts to about 1,000 pages. And of course, the collected information is also available in a spreadsheet format, which can be analyzed by the teacher with any sort of fields for comparison. In fact, we do that from semester to semester, and do that across subjects as well. Students are also asked to record a video depicting about showcasing about the scenarios, and some students choose to tell a story, which is very enriching as well. So here is some of the results that we have collected from the previous semester, where we run on the 2 subjects, and altogether we have more than 110 students for one of the subjects here at PolyU, and it's about knowledge management systems, methods and tools for such systems. And one of the questions that, or some of the questions that came back from the students, for example, are the proposed method enhancing their awareness and understanding of driving forces and trends? And you can see that 55% of the students agree. So we just take down the majority for each of these questions. The proposed method has enhanced my awareness and understanding of the critical uncertainties that will shape the future of the field. They agree as well. The proposed method has enabled me to generate new ideas about the subject field that might evolve in the future. That's neutral, and most of them agree, except for the last one. I would like to see this approach being adopted in other subjects. Maybe this is still too new. Maybe the method of introducing this still requires to be improved. Students at this stage a little bit uncomfortable to see more subjects taking up this approach of co-creating the syllabus. So there's more work for us to do in order to enact this change. And when students are asked to reflect on what they have actually learned and how the methods have increased their understanding of the subject, then we are very pleased with the feedback from the students. As you can see, to say a field, they learn about global trends and new things. They believe the approach is reasonably easy to follow. The way that we explain the uncertainty and the impact part is quite clear. The workshop allows them to learn from each other, allows them to communicate, and many other good points as well. We'll be, trying to further improve on these things. Furthermore, and then another question that asks the students, please reflect on what you have learned and how did the method actually increase your understanding of the subject field. Again, overall speaking, I think the response has been very good. We are pleased with it. Generally speaking, students believe that this helped them to learn and apply more critical thinking, be able to think independently. Hopefully, that will enable them to become more independent and be able to, to create their view of the future in such a topic. Another question: which part of the method should be improved? That's obviously keen to the teacher and everybody about what areas can be further improved. Maybe better explanation about the entire technique, better explanation about how and why this kind of learning approach is helpful to the students, especially for those who have never worked before. They may need further help in order to be convinced and share a deeper appreciation. That's what we have learned. Other things like provide a list of uncertainty for them to choose. We can consider that, but of course, we do not want the students to merely consider just the list that is being provided by the teacher. Then again, uncertainties can be quite varying. So therefore, it may be difficult, depending on the focused scenario, a focused situation. It may be difficult for the student or the teacher to prepare some uncertainty for them to consider. I mentioned earlier that one form of disseminating the result is self-recording of video by students, and I've picked two here. I can just play for the first minute or so that you get a glimpse about what the students have done and share with others. And these are in fact available on Flipgrid, FLIPGRID, as for public sharing as well.
Hello everyone, welcome to my scenarios. The objective question discussed in this video is how will search evolve in the next 3 years. There are various factors will influence the future. Based on the important and uncertain principle, we choose these two uncertainties to drive the plot of my scenario. The X of uncertainty degree of AI implementation captures the contrast between self-learned and improved mechanisms, and people-defined rules and mechanisms. The X of uncertainty personalization scope captures the contrast between full personalization through the whole searching processes, including the information source, search mechanisms, and results, and partial personalization, which emphasizes on user experience and search results.
All right, we'll try another one.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenna. Today I will show you how will digitalization impact the whole field of knowledge management in the next 5 years. 4 scenario cases will be shown. They are big data analytics, cloud-based KMS, e-learning platform, and mobile devices. There are 2 main driving forces to 4 scenario cases. They are standardization and security concern as well.
Okay, so I think you get a feel about the students' efforts. Overall, we are very, very pleased, and something that even for me as a teacher for 30 years haven't seen such a diversity of lateral thinkings being exhibited by the students for a mere workshop of scenario planning and brainstorming. We are very pleased about what the students have exhibited. So we have written the paper. In fact, it was delivered at the International Conference on Business Excellence in Bucharest, Romania, in March of 2018, and we are very pleased that this paper was selected as the Best Paper Award for the conference, and subsequently we also been informed that the paper has been selected to appear in this Journal of Emerging Trends in Marketing and Management, to appear in June 2008, and you can find that online afterwards. So thank you very much. This is a quick presentation about the recent opened curriculum projects that we have done at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University.